Today we're going to talk about chicken housing. Chicken coops, chicken tractors, and anything else you might put chickens in. Electric. So let's talk about what you're going to use to house your chickens. Most people generally begin with just a simple coop and run setup. So what that is a permanent chicken house where the chickens go into every night. You close the door, you keep them safe. Generally it has nest boxes where they'll lay their eggs and a roost where they can go up at night and sit on the roost and feel safe. And during the daytime, you open up the coop and there's a fenced in area where the chickens can run around and be outside and get that sunlight that they need and look for bugs. A coop and run system is a very safe system. It's a very reliable system. You're going to lose much less birds to predation, and you're going to be able to have all your birds lay your eggs where they belong. So if you're concerned about predators, a coop and run is a great setup. Also, if you don't have a lot of time every day to kind of manage your birds and you just want to open the door, go to work, come home and close the door at night, a coop and run is a great setup. You don't have to worry about predators as long as you do proper fencing and as long as the animals have shade and a nice safe coop where they can go to hide if there's hawks or something. Generally speaking, you will not have much problems with predators. If you do a coop and run, there's a few things you want to have in your coop and a few things that you want to have for the run. So to start with, let's talk about the coop. You can buy a coop, you can build a coop. You can turn an old building into a coop. We've done all three. We've built structures for our chickens. We've bought that coop behind me there. That red one was a housewarming gift from my in-laws. And the yellow coop over here, that was a structure that was already on the property that we turned into a chicken coop. So what do you need to have in a chicken coop if you're going to build it or you're going to buy it? Well, you want to make sure first that it's the right size for the amount of animals that you have. You'll find a lot of different opinions on this. Generally, as a guideline, if your animals have access to a run where they can go outside and run around, then somewhere between 2 to 4 square feet per bird in the coop is good. A lot of that depends on the size of the breed and how long they're going to be in the coop. So if your animals get out every day and they're not a really big breed bird, go ahead and go with that 2 foot per bird square feet for the coop, as long as they're not in there for an extended period of time. If they are, you'd want somewhere more like 4 or 5. And if you didn't have a run, it was just a coop, you'd want something like 10 square feet per bird for the larger breeds, and somewhere around 5 to 7 down into the smaller and the Bantam breeds. Bantam chickens are really small chickens. We'll talk about that in a little while. So you want to make sure the coop is the right size. And some real typical signs of the coop being too small: if you have chickens that are getting overly pecked on, maybe you see missing tail feathers, maybe you see their heads are getting bruised. Although chickens always will peck at each other and there's always a pecking order, that's where that word comes from, you do want to make sure. The ducks are sneaking up on me. They want a duck episode. You do want to make sure that they're not being overly pecked or overly abused. That's a sign that they're in too much confinement and they're unhappy. Also, look at the coop. Does it smell good? Does it smell fresh and clean? The smaller you have, smaller coop, the more you're going to have to clean the coop. Consider the space requirement for your chickens. Another thing every coop should have is a nest box. Now, traditionally, chickens like to lay their eggs at an elevated area. Oftentimes, I'll find eggs on in my hay loft. They'll be at the top of the hay bales. There'll be little nests with eggs in them. Chickens feel safer laying their eggs up higher. So it's nice to offer your birds a nest box that is elevated. You will find sometimes chickens lay in a barn somewhere on the floor or even lay in a field. I've seen that happen. So it's not bad to have the nest boxes on the ground. Chickens will do it themselves. But it is nice if you have the option to elevate the nest boxes. If your coop is elevated off the ground, like this red one behind me, that suffices enough. The chickens already feel safe going in there and laying the eggs. And a nest box is just a little square area big enough for the chicken with a lot of hay underneath it to go feel safe and secure. It has a wall on 3 sides, and the hen goes in there and she lays the egg and she'll sit there for a little while and then she'll leave for the day. So how many nest boxes do you need for your chickens? This is one of the funniest things. This red coop behind me, it's got a bunch of nest boxes. That's the way it comes when you buy the thing. All the chickens lay in one nest box. So if you're designing a smaller coop and you don't have a lot of room for a bunch of nest boxes, that's okay. 1, 2, 3 for a good amount of birds. If you're raising 50 birds, yeah, you're gonna need multiple nest boxes. But for a small homestead sized flock like we have 8 hens running around and they all use the same nest box. So, you know, 1 nest box for every 5 birds would be okay. You're gonna find they do that anyway. If you have a larger flock, you're gonna need more nest boxes. Every coop needs to have some sort of ventilation. This is especially important in the summer months. You want to have a window that you can open up, a door that you can open up, but especially ventilation that will be safe from predators. So having a window that opens with a screen is perfect, because on those hot summer days, in the morning time before you've got out there, or in the evening when the birds are roosted, you can still have the ventilation and not worry about the problems. So make sure your coop has ventilation. Finally, you're going to need a roost for your birds. And again, this figure, how many linear feet per bird per roost? Somewhere around 1 to 2 feet per birds, depending on the size of the birds. I have a chicken tractor that has an 8-foot roost, and we've had as many as 8 birds in there at one time of the smaller breeds, and they all have enough space to roost. If you have larger breeds and you want to give them 1.5 feet or 2 feet per linear foot, that's a good idea. And sometimes what I've done in other roosts of ours, I've put 2 roosts. So if you have a coop that's 8 feet long and you put 2 roosts, now you have 16 linear feet. And that's what we did in the yellow coop over here when we retrofitted this little kids playhouse into a chicken coop. Chickens need to roost at night. They really crave that safety of a roost. Now, what should you use for a roost? You can use a 2x4, you can use a 1x1. You'll see a lot of people mention that you want to have a flat surface for the bird to steady itself on. That's fine. Honestly, I've had so many chickens over the years that have roosted in trees. They find a little branch like this here, and wind up climbing up on it. So if you don't have any 1x1 lying around and you just found a nice straight piece of a tree branch that you could use, that works too. But if I have the choice, I prefer to go with like a 1x1 or a 1x2 and hang that as a roost for my birds. Inside of your coop, you're going to need some feeders, you're going to need some waterers. We'll talk about my favorite kinds later. If you have a Coop and Run set up, you can leave the water outside, you can leave the feed outside. The coop's just for safety at night. Now, what about your run? One of the most important things to fencing a run safely is to bury the fencing and to make sure the holes in your fencing are very small. You don't need to use chicken wire. Chicken wire is expensive, and if you're doing a large size run, you don't need to go that route. Our chickens have a Coop and Run here, which they have, the whole run is surrounded by this welded wire. It's 1 inch by 3 inch spacing. It's a lot cheaper than doing this whole thing in chicken wire. It will need to be tall fencing because chickens can fly. And you can cut their feathers to prevent them from flying up. But I like to have, you know, a 6-foot fence around the whole chicken run. And remember, if your chicken coop is, say, the height of that yellow barn behind me, somewhere between 4 to 6 feet high, and it's next to the fencing, your chickens can fly up on top of the 4-foot roof and then fly up over the 6-foot fencing. So you're going to want to make sure, if you don't want your chickens escaping, to have a run, 6-foot high fencing, small squares, and don't have any large structures that are like 4 feet high near the edges. Keep them to the center, or if they are near the edges, put higher fencing behind those, because chickens will hop up on one thing and then they'll hop over. It's amazing what they can get out of. Of course, your run is also keeping predators from coming in, and so you want to make sure that you bury that fencing down into the ground. I like to bury it 6 inches to 1 foot, and I like to attach it to just a log. I'll cut down a small sapling, zip tie it to that sapling, and it's okay if that rots down in the ground. It just is a little added security. It keeps predators from pulling up that fencing or digging down under. So that's your traditional Coop and Run. One of the negative things to the Coop and Run, which you'll notice behind me, there's no grass. Chickens that have access to a coop 24/7 and a run 24/7 are going to peck out all the grass. There will be some weeds that they don't like to eat that wind up coming up. You won't have much greenery. If you want a chicken with the benefits of a grass-fed diet, you're either going to have to supplement that diet with garden and food scraps. Grass clippings is a good way to do that. Or you're going to need to let your chickens out. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. One of those ways is with a chicken tractor. You'll notice that we've shown you the Homesteady chicken tractor. We designed that chicken tractor, and the Homesteady pioneers have access to the entire video. It's a full hour-long video that shows you step by step how to build that chicken tractor. So if you want to do a chicken tractor, go ahead and become a Homesteady pioneer, and you can see the entire full hour series on how to do that. Chicken tractors basically are just a movable coop that allows your chickens to be on fresh grass every day, but confines them so that they're safe from predators, and so that they're safe, they don't get lost, and so that they don't go laying eggs all over the place. Chicken tractors are a really handy tool to have on your homestead. Even if you do free range your birds like we do, I still keep some birds in a chicken tractor. The birds that don't like to roost at night in our chicken coop usually get stuck in a chicken tractor. And I like making sure that I have a set amount of eggs every day. I don't want to go on an Easter egg hunt every morning. So a chicken tractor is a great way to confine your birds, to protect them, and make sure that they get fresh grass every day. The Homesteady chicken tractors are a perfect design for anywhere from 5 to 8 egg-laying chickens, depending on the size of the breed, and also good from anywhere from 10 to upwards of 15 meat varieties, again, depending on the breed and the size of the bird. Inside of a chicken tractor, you're going to want to have feeders and waters and everything right there so that you can just move the tractor once a day, let them get fresh grass, and have all the food and all the water that they need. I really like using chicken tractors. It's nice not to have to worry about closing the chickens in every night because they're confined. You don't have to worry about that. The only downside to a chicken tractor is it's a little more work carrying the food and the water out to the tractors each day. So you want to come up with a good mobile setup with your feed and your water close by, so you're not hauling 5-gallon buckets of feed and water all across miles and miles of property. So it's just some logistical things to consider. But chicken tractors are a very good option. However, they will not work in the wintertime. When there's snow and when it's cold, your chickens need a nice floor with lots of bedding to insulate their feet. So you can't just have a chicken tractor. You could have a chicken tractor all spring, summer, and fall, but as it starts to get cold, you're gonna need a permanent coop. Another good option is using electric poultry netting. If you want to use electric poultry netting for your chickens, you can keep chickens within poultry netting, electrified poultry netting really well. You can move a coop around, you can move a chicken tractor around if you have the infrastructure for that, or you could even walk your chickens from the run with the feed, having them follow you for feed each day, into electric poultry netting if you have really, well-trained chickens. Poultry netting is a really good option. Chickens are one of the harder animals to successfully fence in with electric netting. Chickens need a really high power shock, and because they don't come in contact with the ground so often, it's a little more difficult. So you need a really good setup. You can't just wing it. If you're going to do electric poultry netting, I cannot stress to you enough the importance of calling a company and getting the specific setup for your setup. This is not a thing you can use a general rule and get away with. And if you don't fence it properly, your chickens will not fear the fence and it won't work. So here's my advice to you. If you're going to do electric poultry netting, movable netting, call our partners Premier One. Premier One makes sure that your phone call gets answered by their employees. About 80% of the employees at Premier One actually have livestock themselves. So if you want to use electric poultry netting, it's a great option, but you need to do it right. And to do it right for your setup, every setup is going to be different. Call Premier One. They will take all the time in the world to walk you through how to set up what you have the right way so that your chickens are successfully kept safe and secure if you want to go the route of movable poultry netting. So thanks for watching our discussion on chicken housing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The video that you just saw was an excerpt from the Go Homestead course, a totally free homesteading video course that can be found at thisishomesteady.com. A course that's designed to help you improve your homestead or plan for your future one. Head on over to thisishomesteady.com or just click on the link there. There's lots more videos that are not available on YouTube or anywhere else except for on our website, thisishomesteady.com. Head on over there and join the email list to gain access to this free homesteading video course.